WNST, Taos, and Baltimore home to take on the Cleveland Indians this weekend. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast, the tasty coffee, the best fried chicken in the land. And, of course, if you're using that ROFO app when you're gassing up, you're going to get some free Western fries in your future, maybe even some wings and some chicken breast or instead of an 8-piece pack. Need to do that for Royal Farms. I haven't had any Royal Farms chicken in about 2 weeks. Certainly haven't had any Western fries. I got to get over there. Also brought to you by the Maryland Jockey Club. Laurel alive with a Tessio this weekend. A true Preakness prep. And, of course, my wife and I head down to the Kentucky Derby celebration at Laurel on the 5th. Hope to see you down there. We'll be at Preakness Day on the 19th as the Maryland Jockey Club moves from Laurel to Pimlico. The Orioles moved from Fenway Park to Detroit a day and a half early on the rainstorm, but we're getting out to Detroit right now where they know something about bad weather. Anthony Fenech covers all things Tigers for the Detroit Free Press. He's also at Anthony Fenech on Twitter when the fail whale's not out there. We welcome him in from yet another bad weather circumstance for the Orioles here in April. Dude, other than Arizona and San Diego, I don't know where else we're getting good weather these days, but certainly the Tigers have been really, really affected by this. Maybe no other team outside of maybe the Twins have been affected so much, right?
Well, I would say the Rogers Center, but yesterday a game in a dome was postponed because ice was falling through the roof. But the domes in Arizona, San Diego, maybe Anaheim are the only places I can think. Tigers have gotten hit hard by the weather bug. I mean, they've had 6 games postponed so far this season. And that's not including the games that shouldn't have been played that were played. Because look, you know as well as I do, baseball is not meant to be played in 35-degree weather when the wind is whipping and then there's some moisture in the air. It just isn't. So for a team that is as under-talented as they are right now, and the starting pitching's been pretty good so far. But I think the biggest factor in that is that nobody wants to hit in these kind of conditions. Subconsciously, these guys are sitting at the plate. They don't want to take a ball off the handle because their hands are going to be vibrating for the next half hour. So I just think that this is all kind of piled up into a team that has not been able to get into any sort of routine. Recently they took on-field batting practice for the first time this season, and I'm talking just, very recently. So it has not been good. I don't know what the remedy is for baseball, but it certainly seems like the April weather has been more of a problem than it has been in years past.
Well, and I guess it messes with pitching. It messes with the schedule down the line. And to some degree, they should all be taken out on Park Avenue and lashed up in New York for starting the season in March. They knew this wasn't going to go well. I mean, maybe they're reading the reports about global warming, but it's actually climate change. That's an act here. And, April's never any good, but they decided to do it in March and add a couple of extra days. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do in spreading the schedule out and still keeping 162 together, but this is never going to go well, right? And this is going to be an April theme every year, as are the Expos-like crowds that we've seen here in Baltimore and elsewhere, where human beings don't want to go out and pay good American money or Canadian money, in any case, to sit in the cold and watch baseball either.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, and they haven't been where we've been, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit. The crowds have been, I think, the thing they've been sparse have been that's been generous. But I think the players have to, on some level, take a little bit of blame for this, because the reason that they started in March 29th is because they wanted to add 4 or 5 more off days to the season schedule, and they're just opposed to playing doubleheaders during this season. It's just not something they want to do or the owners want, because then the owners are losing another gate. So money and greed is always factoring into this, and a lot of the Southern teams, they don't want to have a bulk of their home games or the Southern or Western or Dome teams, they don't want to have a bulk of their home games in April because children are still in school, it's early in the season, and then come postseason pennant race time, they don't want to have all those games on the road. So there has to be some kind of a compromise somewhere, and I guess the way that I look at it, either maybe financially compensating some of those teams that have to have early home games, or perhaps at least breaking it up a little bit. Look, the Tigers are going to be in cold weather, and the Orioles will be too for the next few days. They're going to be in cold weather until we get to Baltimore at the end of the month. So it has been a hellacious month for them weather-wise.
Well, and affecting the play on the field, as you've pointed out, with batters that don't want to take bats and pitchers that have trouble warming up and not knowing when their start's going to be, and players showing up at ballparks not knowing whether they're going to play or not. The Orioles have been spared a little bit of that, although they played in disgusting conditions in New York. And, the Joe Maddens of the world are now speaking out, and I know Major League Baseball's gotten more involved in this. And, I've railed for years about the Orioles screwing the fans here and baseball screwing the fans on rainy days, when the forecast doesn't look good at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you're gassing up the car in Toledo, right, to come up for a game in Detroit or whatever. There's less of that involved, but I think there's also some social consciousness of this. We get a lot of people involved in it, not just angry sports writers, right?
Yeah, no, there are. That's the thing that I learned about, in one of their more recent postponements with the Yankees was that, the Yankees didn't want to sit around all day, but they also didn't want to come back and play a split doubleheader. They wanted a straight doubleheader. The Tigers would never do a straight doubleheader now with the outlook of the season, the Yankees being as big of a draw as they are. And they had a couple dates, and they picked June 4th, and then MLB didn't want that day because that's the day of the MLB draft. There are so many moving parts, including having your Players Association representative involved.
And the Players Association really, really, really pissed off, right? Like, on top of everything, they're not giving an inch to what the contract said because, the collusion of the offseason has sort of, re-cemented that for anybody that didn't remember Marvin Miller or Don Fear like I did, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it is really something that they're going to have to, I don't know what they're going to have to do, and they might just have to pray next year that the weather is better coming into the season, which I have a sneaky suspicion it won't be for all of those climate change reasons you mentioned.
Man, you gave me your great comedy here. I'm going to continue to refer back to this, Anthony Fenech, that you call them under-talented. I love that. I feel that way about the Orioles. Look, I feel that way about 15 teams in Major League Baseball, right? Like, where, they're coming into a gunfight with a water pistol, quite frankly, whether it's the Tampa Rays or, pick any team in the National League this side of the Marlins or the Padres or whatever, and the tanking thing, I don't know. The Tigers for so long had that outlier owner who was crazy about winning, who just wanted to win, so much so that I almost went out and put a Tom Selleck hat on, Anthony, because I sort of like that. That's now gone in Detroit for the fans, too. So that's sort of, we're going to go buy the best player in the marketplace. That's not how the Tigers are ever going to run again under Chris Ilitch, right?
No, I would not expect that, but I would say that, and it's hard to put numbers of years on rebuilding projects, but let's say 5 years from now when this team is finally back up to a competitive level, I think that they will be able to open up those pocketbooks more because they've shown in the past that it's there, and I think that there is a sense within the organization that you need to be spending some sort of money. In this day and age, I just think that the one thing that Agent Scott Boras, and I know that he is very biased in some of his words being said, but you need to open up that pocketbook to some point. And I think there's some teams out there that are sitting in the $120, $130 million range that would really help themselves if they got up to the 160 kind of range $1 million. Because look, that's where spending that kind of money does have a big impact on your team. But it is just a different. They have done this for so long and so many years in the past in terms of, having the $200 million payrolls, and it just never culminated in the World Series, and it's getting to the point where they were really thinking and torpedoing the future for doing this with some of the contracts they handed out. I mean, look, they didn't expect Jordan Zimmerman to be somewhat of a bust of a deal, but they have that on their hands. Look, if they could have gone back, they probably would not have given Miguel Cabrera a contract where he's about to turn 35 and still has 6 years, $182 million left on his deal. It was very, in my estimation, it was a reflection of the times when Mr. Ilitch was spending that kind of money on the Tigers. But they simply traded throughout their farm system for so many years to make in-season upgrades. Their farm system is barren. Now with a few trades, they have been able to replenish it a little bit, and with a few more on the horizon, guys like Shane Green, even Michael Fulmer, Nick Castellanos. Those are guys who likely will be shopped coming up here soon. So it's going to be a long 4 or 5 seasons in Detroit. It's going to be a test for the fans who have already shown that they're not coming to Comerica Park as much in the future. But I don't know if you can really lump them in with with teams like perhaps the Marlins and the Pirates and some other teams that came into the season before they made their really rebuilding moves. Came into the season with a decent enough chance to win. The Tigers were not going to be one of those teams, and I think that they made the prudent move by going back to square A.
He is Anthony Fenech. He covers all things Tigers for the Detroit Free Press, which means he's been rained out and colded out and appears to be bad baseballed out here very soon, like maybe some of us around here. Dude, we got we have an under-talented team here as well, an under-pitched team. But more than that, they signed Castro. They went with Cobb later in the spring training. They gave him $53 million. John's not running the team like Peter did. They're letting kids in for free here in Baltimore now. So the changes are blowing here in the same way that they blew into Detroit in some way, and the differences are going to be played out. Have the Tigers built up enough sort of goodwill to live through this to some degree? And I would say one of the other things that I sort of wanted to tie that into was you having to watch Verlander last year go and fulfill all of that stuff that didn't happen. I sort of remember that when in the hockey parlance, when a Phil Bourque has to go out to Colorado to win, or when that player that's hanging on at the end of his career goes somewhere. I mean, if Adam Jones leaves here and runs off to Boston or New York or the Dodgers and wins championships, we would cheer him, I guess. But the Verlander thing was pretty sudden last year, now wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was, and it was one of those things where, that was really the day when the Tigers should have Justin Verlander, when you knew this was not going to just be patching some holes and trying to get through this with their core, because that really, for all intents and purposes, blew up that core. It was now just going to be Miguel Cabrera going forward. Have they built up enough goodwill? I think that remains to be seen, because you know how the sports fan is. The sports fan can be somewhat jaded, and I think Tigers fans over the years have become jaded with the way that Mr. Ilitch would spend his money and the way that, look, since 2006, the Tigers were one of the premier perennial contenders in the American League, and they were in the postseason nearly every year. No, they did not get to their World Series, but they got to 2 of them, and they got to another 2 or 3 American League Championship Series, and this is what the team and their fans got accustomed to. And now it is going to be losing and losing and losing. And the fact of the matter is, where a guy like Mr. Ilitch would get the benefit of the doubt for how much money he poured into the team, I don't think Chris Ilitch is going to get that kind of benefit, because clearly he's come in, he's scaled back the payroll, he's taken a longer look at a more sustainable model, which has worked in other places. But before it's worked in the Chicagos and the Houstons of the world, there has been a lot of pain, and there has been a lot of empty stadiums, and there's been a lot of losing, a lot of development, and I'm just not certain, with Detroit being the sports market that it is, if it's willing to go down that route, and how upset they will be.
Well, the Lions tried that, right? The Pistons have had a rebuild. Hey, the Red Wings haven't been really relevant the last 5 years of the way they were, pre-salary cap, when they could just run around and hockey town it all up and have a good time. The Tigers tried to buy it and found that you couldn't, right?
No, it's been pretty bleak around here. To be quite frank, the Lions had the best outlook going forward this season, but I don't think the Lions did it with any kind of rebuilding strategy. I think that was just an ineptitude that just enveloped the franchise for 50 years. But yeah, it seems like a very cyclical thing here in Detroit, because Pistons are bad, Red Wings are bad, Lions, obviously they went to the postseason, but they're not very, they're the Lions. I mean, quite frankly, the Tigers were the team that everybody could really lean on over the years and count on having a good summer run. Now, that's just not possible. I mean, I think this is a team that loses 100 games. But I would say on the positive side, they made a very good choice in manager Ron Gardenhire. He is definitely one of those guys that he gets the most out of his players. He's a leader. He commands respect in the clubhouse, and I think his main goal is to turn some of these young players into major league guys. I think he's a guy that general manager Al Avila, he could just hand the keys to and not worry about anything else. And I think that, the fan base does look back and say, you know what, I wonder what these last 3 or 4 years of the Tigers era would have been if we had a manager like Ron Gardenhire and not a fresh face like Brad Ausmus, who just did not get the most out of his players. Obviously, these teams had shortcomings, but not having that glue, not having that guy, and I think you guys see it there too with Buck Showalter. He's the glue to that team that has been for many years. Now, look, I don't think the personnel there is what it used to be a couple years ago, especially at the pitching end. But having a guy like that at the helm of your team really makes a difference, and I think Gardenhire's made that difference for them this year.
Hey, man, always appreciate our visits. Stay warm out there while you're watching all this bad baseball. You'll get a second dose as you guys get in here next week as well. We'll try to actually get some people to come to the games next week for you, all right?
Absolutely. That's how I always enjoy it.
Hey, appreciate you. There he goes, Anthony Fenech, joining us here from the Detroit Free Press. You can find him out at Anthony Fenech on Twitter as well as at FreeP. That's freepress.com out in Detroit. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Reminder up for everyone, we are now partners with the Modell Lyric. Next Thursday night, the Brit Floyd Show going to be taking over the Modell Lyric. That's the music of Pink Floyd. You can hear their band leader, Damian Darlington, out in our buyatoyota.com audio vault. Also, coming up next month, Jackson Browne on May 3rd. William Shatner coming. If you're a Monty Python fan, John Cleese, all coming down to the Modell Lyric, as well as the band Kansas, and one of my favorites, Steely Dan. I'll be reeling into years, heading up on my 50th birthday in October. It's all at the Modell Lyric Performing Arts Center. I've got Art with me here, always over the shoulder, so we're really, really pleased that the Modell Lyric has stepped up and become our partner here for everything we do at WNST.net. Also, a reminder, Cole Roofing is out there fixing corporate and commercial roof spaces. We all felt that March wind coming in, the April rains, and now we'll hopefully get some May flowers, right? But not on your roof unless you're Fister Energy and you want to build that kind of roof space that can make you money. But get your roof examined. The wind, the rain, the winter, brutal on the roofs this winter. Go get it checked out, not just in Detroit and the roof of the Sky Dome the other day in Toronto. Find them at coleroofing.com. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. If you have a charity that wants to be a part of our Cole Roofing and Howard Bank Community Be More Positive Charity Series, throw me an email. We'll get you involved. We book those appearances on Thursday mornings here at WNST.net, and I've been handling it all myself, so email me if you've got a 501c3 that needs a little spotlight, big event coming up, you want to raise some money. I am happy to lend the WNST hand to that, courtesy of Howard Bank, as well as our friends at Cole Roofing. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.